Welcome to the Elevate Your Equity Podcast, where we, as married busy professionals, leverage real estate investing to unlock the 3+1 degrees of freedom: health, location, time, and financial.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Elevate Your Equity Podcast. I am so thrilled and honored to have on the show today, Mr. Rod Khleif. How are you today?
Oh, I'm awesome, brother. I appreciate it. I'm super jealous of the fact that you're in Portugal and I'm sitting here in Florida. But beyond that, I'm awesome. It is a beautiful day here in Florida, that said. But wow, very cool. Your lifestyle is very cool. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir. I really appreciate it. And if your lifestyle is anything like your background right now, so that's a tip for the listeners out there to go on YouTube and check out Rod's background.
It's a green screen, but it is my backyard. See here, there's
I love it.
Hold on. There's what's behind it. My wall of thank you cards and my recliner and my rebounder. But it is my backyard. It's a picture of my backyard.
That's
awesome.
So
let's have some fun today, brother.
Let's do it. So before we start into this, Rod, I just want to give the listeners out there that maybe have been living under a rock and haven't heard about where you are, where you come from. So I'm just going to tell the listeners out there that Rod is a multiple business owner and philanthropist who is passionate about business, high performance, real estate, and giving back. As one of the country's top business, real estate, and peak performance luminaries, Rod's built over 24 businesses in his 40-year business career, several of which have been worth tens of millions of dollars. And he's also owned over 2,000 properties. And we're just honored to have you on the show, Rod. I know you've been inspirational and a huge part of people's success in the multifamily industry. And what an industry this has been over the last 5 to 10 years, right?
It has been pretty crazy. Thank you for your kind words, brother. And and it's crazy when I hear that read sometimes. It's actually 27 businesses now. And I don't call them failures when they fail. I call them seminars. And I'll tell you about a big seminar that I had. But, like you said, several have been worth tens of millions. Most were spectacular flaming seminars, and there's a message there. We fail our way to success, right? It's never a straight line. There's lots of setbacks, lots of failures. But as entrepreneurs or investors, we're like a shark. We only die if we stop swimming. And so, got to meet the billionaire owner of Spanx, the women's undergarments that hold everything together. Sarah Blakely, beautiful human being.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But she started with $5,000 and now I think she just sold it for several billion. But she told me at a mastermind we were both at that her dad used to ask her and her brother once a week, what have you failed at this week? And I thought, what an awesome freaking question to ask your kids so they don't fear failure. So many people fear failure where they should fear regret, candidly.
Right. I love that quote from Jim Rohn. It says it's either the discipline, but it works out to either you can be regretful that you didn't try or be proud that you did and end up going through. And so I think that's really, really awesome. So I love the analogy there that you talked about, because failures is only a true failure if you stop learning and taking action. So I look at failures as like these little learning lessons, like you said, and adjustments, right? It's like, there's a book out there that said, when you take off in an airplane from Los Angeles and you're heading towards Boston or you're going towards Florida, right? Do you think, because if you are off by a fraction of a degree on angle, right? If you don't get it exactly right when you're leaving the airport and you can't change direction, there's a very low likelihood that you're going to land right in that airport in Miami, or you're going to land right in that airport in Boston. So while you're on that journey, you have to have these little adjustments in the air. And sometimes it could be big ones. Sometimes you have detours, right? And you got to make these adjustments. But as long as you can still keep the direction of your ship going approximately in the direction you want to go and make those little movements in line and live adjustments, you're going to get to where you need to. So that's the thing.
A boat and or a plane is off course 90% of the time.
Bingo.
But they always end up at the right spot. And same thing with your goals. If you get derailed on a goal, if you focus on that outcome and you just change your approach, focusing on that outcome. It's never a straight line. And if that doesn't work, you change your approach again, focusing on that outcome. If that doesn't work, you change your approach again, focus on that outcome. I can give you examples of this. I remember when I lost everything in 2008 and 2009, I built a litigation support company and it almost went bankrupt in 2010. And I changed my approach and it turned into a $10 million company with 60 employees that I sold a few years ago. Another example is when COVID hit. I was supposed to have 800 people at a boot camp in Orlando. What am I going to do? And I didn't want to refund all those tickets. And so I changed my approach. I went virtual and I just over the top delivered in more than these people expected and turned into and now I've got a video studio here at my compound and I do virtual events as well as live events now. And so
that's awesome.
Yeah. Sometimes you have to innovate. Sometimes you have to pivot. But if you keep your outcome in your mind's eye, in fact, if you go to multifamilyvirtualbootcamp.com, you'll see me with my phone recording that video that's still on that website, because I literally did it in 24 hours. And, we just reacted very, very quickly. I was one of the first people to go virtual. So anyway, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing those very tangible examples. And normally we go in order here on the show. We like to talk about your history and backstory, but there's just too much content here. I had to run with it. So let's talk about that though. Let's go far back, right? Let's talk about how did you find real estate investing, right? And how did that start to become the linchpin of what you do? And just talk about you in general in the early days and where you are now.
Well, let's go way back. I immigrated to this country when I was 6 with my brother Albert, my mother's Vantje. I was born in the Netherlands, Holland, wooden shoes, windmills. And we ended up in Denver, Colorado. We really struggled. We didn't have much money at that time. And my mom actually babysat kids so we'd have enough money to eat. But I remember, growing up, we ate expired food. We went to this expired food store. We drank powdered milk with our cereal in the morning, which sounds better than it is. Trust me. I wore clothes from the Goodwill and the Salvation Army all the way through junior high school till I lied about my age at Burger King when I was 14 so I could get a job because I was tall, so I could buy my own clothes and ultimately buy a car. I'm sure you've got listeners had it harder than I did, or maybe if I have it harder now, but I knew I wanted more. And luckily, my mom had an incredible work ethic. So she babysat kids so we'd have enough money to eat. And with that babysitting money, she was an entrepreneur. So she invested in the stock market successfully. She did IPOs, and she also invested in real estate. And again, this is a babysitter, so I'm really proud of her. But, the first asset she bought was right across the street from us, a house for $30,000 when I was about 14. Then when I was 17, she told me she'd made $20,000 in her sleep. That had gone up in value 20,000. I'm like, what? You didn't do anything and you made 20 grand? This is back when 20 grand was a lot of money. I'm like, screw college. I'm getting into real estate, Mom. So I got my real estate broker's license right when I turned 18, which you could do back then with education. Now they got smart. You need some experience before you can be a broker. But I was a broker right when I turned 18. Well, my first year in real estate, I made about 8 grand. My second year, maybe 10 grand. But my third year, I made over $100,000, which back in 1980 was pretty decent change. So what happened between year 2 and year 3 that caused me to 10x my income? Well, what happened was I met a guy, I was actually dating his daughter, that taught me about the importance of mindset and psychology, and how truly 80 to 90% of your success in anything is just that, your mindset and psychology. So only 10 to 20% is the mechanical information that you and I talk about on our podcast. It's the do and it's the keep doing that really makes the difference. If it was just the technical, there'd be a bunch of wealthy librarians and college professors out there. You've got to take action with what you learn. And so fast forward today, I've owned a couple thousand houses that I've rented long-term. I own thousands of apartment units. In 2006, my net worth went up $17 million while I slept. And you might be like, wow. And I was like, wow. And I got a head so big, I could barely fit it through a door. I thought I was a freaking real estate god. And when that happens, God, or whatever you believe, the universe will give you a nice little smack. Well, that was 2008. I lost $50 million conservatively in 2008 and 9. And so, what I'm known for on my podcast, I've got a podcast called Lifetime Cashflow through Real Estate Investing. I'm blessed to say we're about to hit 13 million downloads, which is just mind blowing. You've been on it. And what I'm known for is talking about the mindset and the psychology. It took that 50 million to lose in the first place, but then what it took to recover from that to get back to the success that I'm blessed to have today. And so I'm happy to drill down on anywhere you like, Derek.
Yeah, I do have some questions, but let's talk first about what kind of insights you drew, because I know that you must have done some sort of mindset training while you were building your $50 million net worth.
Well, I didn't know I was doing it, until I saw the movie The Secret came out. I don't know if you saw that, about the law of attraction. And I'm like, holy crap, that's what I've been doing this whole time. And so here's the main thing. You've got to have what Napoleon Hill in his book, Think and Grow Rich, calls a burning desire. You've got to want it. And so the first thing if you come to one of my boot camps, and I was mentioning to you, I've got one coming up in Denver, the end of July, but if you come to one of my boot camps, the first thing we do is goal setting. I call it goal setting on steroids, about an hour and a half, because how are you going to get anything if you don't know what the hell it is? You got to know what you want with clarity, right? You got to know what you want. And so we do that. And it's a really deep process. Happy to describe it if you want. But if you want, I actually did this on my official Facebook page on January 1st of this year. I do it around the 1st or 2nd with music, and it's professionally done with the goal setting guide you can download. If you DM me on any social channel, and I'm on everything, they've even got me on TikTok now, DM me. And I'll send you the link to that. And I'm very responsive. And it's really, it's really something powerful you should do with your spouse, make sure you're aligned on your goals with if you've got teenage kids, it's very powerful for them as well to sit down and do your goals. But that's the biggest thing, is you've got to know what it is you want. Like when I lost everything, it would have been real easy for me to focus on the loss. That's a natural human tendency to focus on loss. And we connect through pain. We connect through pain, which is just crazy. If you came up to me and said, Rod, how you doing? I said, oh my God, I am freaking fantastic. Life is amazing. You take a couple steps back and say, okay, Rod's off his freaking meds. But if you came up and said, hey, Rod, how you doing? And I said, oh God, my back's freaking killing me. I pulled my back, or I just lost 10 grand in the market. You put your arm around me and say, oh, I feel you, brother. Because we connect through pain. It's so, you probably wouldn't, Derek, you're evolved, but most people connect that way. And so, you got to be real careful of that. The key and how I was able to recover, one of the big ways was, again, and there were several things and we can talk about them, but one of the first ones was reassociating with what I wanted and why I wanted it, getting pictures around me of the things that I wanted, redoing my goals. That's something you should do a couple times a year. So that's the first thing. There's a lot more, but
yeah. One thing, I have a couple of comments off this, but I want to also get back to my original question behind this question. This is so important these days, right? Because I'm sure that you see people that come to you that are looking for a silver bullet, right? They're looking for the
pill.
That's
they want the pill. They're like DM me. How do I make a lot of money in real estate?
Right.
I'm like, really? You're going to send me that message as the DM? I'm like, come to my freaking boot camp, okay? Listen to my podcast. Actually do something. But that's a source of frustration for me.
That's exactly what I wanted to explore is like, what do you have? Because there's a lot of people out there, including people that may be listening for this podcast, who are trying, because that's what I did. Like for the first 6 months when I was looking at trying to understand real estate investing, I was looking for the one thing that once I flip it, it like would happen. And it doesn't work out that way. It's business. So
there's no silver bullet.
Yeah. Can you talk to that crowd now?
Yeah, you bet.
About what that's like?
Yeah, listen, you've just got everybody in this business once started out an amateur. Okay. In fact, one of the books I give my students, my love language is gifts. And if we'll talk about books for a second, get the book, The 5 Love Languages. If you haven't read it, I had the author on my show. It's a freaking awesome book. But my love language, I show love by giving gifts. And so, of course, my wife loves that, and she never expects it, but she loves it. But the point is, my students get a lot of books. And one of them is Turning Pro by Steve Pressman. Stop being a freaking amateur and be a professional. And so there's a great book, 5 Love Languages, great book. Let me give a couple others real quick. The Slight Edge, those little decisions you make every day that trajectory your life up or down. Gary Keller's One Thing is awesome. I had Jay Papasan, his co-author, on the show. Hal Elrod's Miracle Morning. You said you do the Miracle Morning. I've had Hal on the show. He's a beautiful guy as well. Oh, yeah. Those are all great books, but I forgot what the question was now that I went down that route.
What would you do, or what would you say to those people out there who are looking for the silver bullet? That's right.
Don't freaking dabble, okay? You can learn anything. You just got to go learn it. Like I said, you can come to my boot camp if this airs before the end of July for $197 for 3 days of training, and nothing's being sold. There's no sales pitch. Well, let me say this. I talk about my coaching for 30 minutes. You're not obligated to do anything. You will leave that event with enough knowledge to massively get rocking. And so come learn the business. If it's not through me, then go on YouTube University and learn there, whatever. But like I say, my Denver event's $197, kind of a no-brainer. And my focus has always been add as much value as I possibly can, and it'll come back. And it always does. Like, for example, if you're watching this on YouTube, I'm holding up some of the books I've written that I give away for free. These are all free. And I've got books on just about every topic in multifamily. A lot of them are on my website, realestatewithrod.com, direct connection to that. But the point is, I focus on adding as much value as I can, and it always comes back. So if you get anything from this episode, get that. The most successful people on the planet add the most value. Okay. So 100%. Think about how you can add more. Think about how you can add more value, and success is inevitable.
I love it, Rod. I think, a couple of things I wanted to tack onto this before asking the next question, just some comments, and I couldn't agree with you more on all of it. I think that in order for someone to really pay attention and become fully invested, the people that are most successful either invest their time and or their money and energy into things that they want to do. If you're looking for a silver bullet, you're trying to find a way around that, and it's just not going to happen for you.
Looking for the diet pill. You're looking for the diet pill. Right.
Yep. So I'm encouraging all those out there to please get the 4 C's. The 4 C's that I recommend is the clarity, consistency, coaching, and community. And I know that Rod has got all of that set up for you. There's plenty of other folks out there that do as well, but he's perfected over many, many years. And so I highly recommend looking into his stuff.
Let me brag for a minute. Okay. So I've been teaching a little over 4 years. My students own somewhere between 60 and 70,000 doors that I know of. I'm super proud of that. Beyond my kids, that's my greatest accomplishment. And here's why, though. It's not that I'm some sage or anything like that. It's just that I don't just spend time on the technical side. I teach you like at my boot camp, I spend time on mindset. You will cry. You will laugh. You will cry. I'm just going to tell you right now. That's just because I spend time on having people look in the mirror and getting acclimated to what juices them so they take freaking action with what they learn. That's the secret sauce. And so again, whether you spend time with me or not, make sure you're continually growing and improving. And frankly, if you're not growing, you're dying. Okay. Make sure that you can, learners are earners. I've got a picture, I never went to college. I've got this picture of me with a bunch of lanyards around my neck and on my arm from the boot camps and the masterminds and all these things that I've continually to go through. But growth is super critical as well.
It is. And the mindset piece is what drives everything in this business.
Right.
That's your rocket fuel. So I think a lot of people fail to forget that. They fail to remember. It's just they think, well, I don't have the deals or the connections. It's like, well, okay, yes, but what's the symptom of that? It's always the mindset, the driving force.
The analytical ones, you know who you are. You're like, oh, for God's sakes, get on with the real estate stuff. Guys, this is more important than the real estate stuff. Trust me on this. Again, this is how I had 50 million to lose and how I got it back. I know it's foofy, but I'm just telling you, it's how it works.
This is human psychology. It's driving force. It's the fundamental changes that need to happen. So another question I wanted to ask you while you were telling your story, is there a Mrs. Rod Khleif in the picture? What type of conversations were happening throughout this whole history, right? Because, something that a lot of people never talk about, especially people that have done a lot of work in the space like you, is how influential and support that you get from your spouse. How that can accelerate.
Great question.
Let's talk about this a little bit.
I never get asked that question. It is a fundamental, critical question. And I have to deal with this in my mastermind. At my boot camps, the same question you just asked. And I have people get up and talk about how they've overcome the objections with their spouses to get into a business. It's always fear that comes up. But luckily, when I met my wife, I didn't have a you-know-what to you-know-what in, okay? And hot to you-know-what in. Anyway, so I also happen to be blessed. She's supermodel beautiful. In fact, one of the Google search terms used to be Rod Khleif wife, because people always, they hear me talk about her, and she is freaking off the chain gorgeous. And she's more beautiful on the inside than the outside, let me say that.
Awesome.
But, the bottom line is she believed in me and believes in me still, and she's my biggest fan. And you need that in your relationship. If you don't have that in your relationship, you need to figure out a way to get it, okay? And it could just be a communication gap. I spend a lot of time coaching on relationship as well. And I do that on the side with my students. As I spent 20 years with Tony Robbins, and he's probably the best in the world at it. And so you have to pick up something after 20 years of following him around. But point is, that foundational relationship is critical. And I will tell you, the most successful, to speak to men right now, the most successful men on the planet, almost always, they're married. They have a wife that supports them. Statistically, on a percentage basis, that's the highest percentage by far. And, and then again, I've got tons of successful women that are in relationships as well, that have a supporting relationship. And that said, I also have very successful single women in my coaching program as well. But the point is, that home environment is just critical. If you're doing a push-pull with somebody, it's doubly, if not triply hard to make something happen. And it's just communication. And you've got to hold their hand. You've got to help them see results and see potential. And that's why my goal setting is so powerful. If you're in this relationship like this, for God's sakes, DM me and have me take you through that goal setting workshop. And then you do it separately. You do it sitting together, but you don't coach each other on what you're going to put down. You each do your goals and then you compare them. See how aligned you are. Make sure you're both headed the same freaking direction, right? Yeah, super important, brother. Great question.
Yeah, I'm glad that you touched on that, because almost every guest that we talk to when this subject comes up comes down to vision and alignment and communication. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the main thing, because here's the problem, Rod, and I'm just trying to expand on this point for our listeners, is that it's very easy to imagine what would happen if you do a real estate deal when your spouse isn't on board and it goes bad. That's very easy to understand how that's going to go down. It's not going to be good for anyone, right? But if your spouse isn't on board and you end up crushing it on a property, you make $100,000, right, on a flip or something, right? And then your spouse's main inclination is to say, let's celebrate. You spent all this time and energy working on this. And even though I wasn't agreeing with you, like I want to, let's do something. That's what that money's for. And you turn around and say, you know what? No, I want to take that 100,000 and invest it back in the business. You can see the alarm bells going off, right? Because now like the alignment is completely separate. And it's like, when does this end? And so if you don't have the common vision, I think that is the number one thing that when everyone's learning about real estate investing, yes, get familiar with the terms, understand the vocabulary, right? Get to know what the top players are doing, and just get to know some general people in that space. But that home environment, right? That's where you spend most of your time. That's where you get most of your influence from, and you are the people that you spend the most time around, right, Rod? So if you're around your spouse all the time, and your spouse is in alignment with you and in conflict with you, what's that going to do to your mindset? So that's just something I wanted to throw out there.
Well, listen, not just in alignment. Honestly, you should be communicating enough so they understand what the plan is. There should be alignment on the plan. So there's no surprise when that 100 grand comes in or $1.5 million comes in. That's what I'm getting today. When there's no surprise when that comes in, and everyone knows where it's going. So there's not like some whimsical shoot from the hip example. This is like a scenario. You've already figured it out. Because you're communicating. Most relationships fail because of a lack of communication. That's not just personal, intimate relationships. It's also business relationships. I've had partnerships that have failed because of a lack of communication. And so, in fact, I've got a free resource for your peeps. I host the largest commercial multifamily mastermind, I think, in the world. There's about 16 billion in assets in it. But I've had two of the big hitters in there with 5,000 plus doors, both go through very painful breakups with partners because they didn't ask the hard questions up front. So here's a free resource, questions to ask before forming a partnership. And this business really is a team sport. So a lot of partnerships happen. Partnerships, like a marriage, are really easy to get into and very hard to get out of. Okay.
Yeah.
And so you've got to ask, you get caught up in the emotion of it. You've got to ask the hard questions. So if you want this book, it's text partnership to 72345. And if this comes out before my boot camp, if you want interested in the boot camp, text my name, Rod, to 72345. And I'll give your peeps an incredible bonus if they can come. Let me just say this. The price is $197 right now. If the price is more than that, when this episode comes out, you DM me and let me know you were on Derek's show, and I'll give you that $197 price. And I'll give you these two incredible bonuses. If you put the word bonus in when you check out, you'll get my deal evaluator software. It's an incredible spreadsheet with how to use it, videos and all that to evaluate a deal. You'll also get my document library, which is worth tens of thousands of dollars. Those two things alone are worth 10 times the $197. So yeah, it's a 3-day boot camp, July 29th, 30th, and 31st in Denver. It's not a sales pitch. It's just 3 days of drinking through a freaking fire hose training about every aspect of this business. Even if you're going to invest passively, you should be there. Why would you give your hard-earned money to someone you don't know what the heck it is? Stock market, real estate, whatever, it applies. Learn the freaking business. Spend some time with me so you don't squander your hard-earned money. But anyway, you can go to rodindenver.com or text my name, Rod, to 72345. Remember to use the code bonus to get those two bonuses. It's $197 freaking dollars, okay? And it's not a sales pitch. It's kind of a duh. I mean, if you're interested in this business, you belong there. So
absolutely.
Anyway,
and I also have to add too that Denver is an amazing city as well. So take that whole week off, enjoy yourself, get ready for it by resting, enjoying some of the great food that Denver's got, the great sights. It'll be summertime, so there's plenty of hiking, a lot of good stuff. So there's kind of no downsides to this. Anyway,
right,
Rod, next question I have is, you've got this incredible educational environment to help would-be investors. What have you seen over the years that makes the best students?
Oh, that's easy. Okay. It's the ones that get aligned with their goals and create that burning desire. It's all about massive freaking action. It's not about technical. It's not about learning every single aspect of the freaking business before you take action. A lot of people have to check off every box before they make a move. You can't be a perfectionist here. You've just got to take that first step. Like Dr. Martin Luther King said, you take that first step in faith, the next step will be revealed. Lao Tzu, thousands of years ago, said the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. You got to take that first step. And I will tell you, sometimes it's the hardest one. But I see it with my students. It's the law of the first deal as well. It might be 6 months, 8 months. They're moaning. They haven't got a deal yet. And it might even be a year sometimes. They get that first deal. And then the next thing I know, they have 5. Okay. It's like, what just happened? Okay. And it's the hardest one. But the bottom line is massive action. Action mitigates fear. action makes things happen. Yes. Could you have some stumbling blocks? Could you get your nose blooded? Sure. But again, we fail our way to success, even if it's a failure. But the key is action. That's the number one thing. So you've got to have that burning desire. So you take that action.
Yeah, I think that again, it backs up all to mindset. That's why we're spending so much time on this, and why you have been talking about this for many years and is always the constant with the most successful people. So I appreciate you underscoring that again. Now, as far as difficulties and struggling, right? I'm pretty sure I know where this answer is going to come from or what it's going to be. But what is the top thing that you see most students struggle with? What's the biggest difficulty with people that get started in this and then
they allow themselves to create overwhelm? And, in my coaching program and at my boot camp, we give them a 90-day action plan. You just got to follow it. Listen, Tony Robbins calls this dynamic the science of achievement versus the art of fulfillment. Achievement really is a science, okay? If you want to learn multifamily, I've got a blueprint. You just got to go do it. That's it. Okay. Now, fulfillment is an art. Okay. And when I say fulfillment, I'm talking about typically giving back in some fashion. And I can dig deeper on that if you want, but fulfillment really is an art where you've got to figure out what really juices you and how you contribute to whatever really juices you to achieve that fulfillment. But science, listen, you just got to, I've got the blueprint for multifamily. If you want to go learn something else, chances are there's a blueprint for it. You just got to go do it. That's it. You got to take massive freaking action. That's the number one thing. Like I said, that's it. And again, are you going to get your nose bloodied? Probably. Are you going to have setbacks? Probably. Is it freaking worth it? You better believe it. Right?
Yes, it is. It enables you to be able to live in Portugal for 2 months if you want to.
Boom. There you go. And here's the thing. You can drive all the way across this country at night with your headlights only seeing 50 feet in front of you, and you'll make it. Could you have some obstacles and some setbacks? Sure. But other people have done it before you. It's the same thing with most businesses, definitely with multifamily. There's a success formula for multifamily. You just got to follow it and do it. And for a lot of businesses, frankly, but you've got to recognize you may not see the whole path. And I will tell you, some of my most successful students are super analytical, and it's very hard for them to get this because, again, they have to check off every single box before they make a move. You can't do that here because you'll lose out on great deals if you do that here, honestly, especially in this hot market we're in right now. So, you've just got to take that first step and take massive action. I'm not saying stupid, frenzied, crazy action, but I'm saying actually take action. So
calculated risks, right?
That's
calculated
it.
risks that make sense, right? And
that's right.
And also when you have the power of a network, right? And because that's my next question is in terms of accountability and networks, right? How do you recommend people work with their networks and setting up accountability? Because that's something key for me. I want to hear it from you.
Super important. You show me your 3 best friends, I'll show you who you are. Okay. Because you are them in every way, financially, physically, happiness, everything. And here's what's sad is most people default to the people they work with or they went to school with. They're not proactively choosing their peers. Listen, very often your peers, out of jealousy or fear, most often, or fear of feeling less than because you're successful, will hold you back. And sometimes it's family. And I'm going to tell you, love that family, but choose your peers proactively. Get around people that want more, which is the reason my coaching program is so successful. Like I said, my students are somewhere between 60 and 70,000 units owned. And I've only been teaching a little over 4 years because that's a place where, and regardless whether it's I'm not putting a plug for my coaching program, but the point is find a group of people that want more out of life, that aren't going to be scared of your success, that will push you and validate you and empower you when that happens. Like back when I was losing everything, I was in Tony Robbins' Platinum Partnership, which is a very expensive group to be in. And I was around people that were thriving through that. And they're like, okay, 50 million, get up, you puss, just go make something happen. That's the kind of people you need to be around, that can get you redirected and refocused. Because focus is another critical piece. What you focus on gets larger, positive or negative, right? So you got to be very, very careful what you focus on. Who you hang out with is who you become. Choose very carefully. And that's why I believe in masterminds. Like I said, I created my own and I've been in members of them forever. Met that Sarah Blakely in one. I totally believe in them. And I want to be around people that think what I think is hard is easy, right? That's why I created mine. And, that's what you want. If you're going to play tennis, you want to play somebody better than you or worse than you, right? You know, it's really important that you proactively seek out groups of people that are making this happen. Come to my freaking boot camp. There'll be 1,000 people there. That's what we're anticipating. These are all people that want more out of life. Okay. Regardless, if you can't make that, then just go into your local community, set up your own meetup group for multifamily investors. I don't care if you only have 2 people when you first start, it'll grow, and just talk shop and get connected and talk this business, and just wallow in it, for lack of a better word. The more you do that, the more you network. Like my students are called my warriors. My most successful warriors are the ones that get the most connected inside of my warrior group. This is incredible living, breathing ecosystem we've created. About 1,000 of them. And so it's just incredibly powerful, because, and most of those 60, 70,000 doors were done between warriors. Okay. You want to be around people that want this, because this business is a team sport. You'll need to figure out how you fit into the team, whether you're the mouthpiece like I am, or you're the analytical person does the underwriting, or you're the process person does the asset management, you know, where you're going to fit in if you're out there hunting deals or building relationships with investors, or wherever you're going to fit into a team. But you are going to get into a team in this business if you're going to be an operator. The more you network, the faster that happens. And at my boot camps, we actually force networking. And those of you that are analytical, just know that you're going to network whether you like it or not. Okay. Those of you that are introverted, just know it's going to, if you come, that just to expect that. But everybody, even the introverted ones, say they're thrilled that they were pushed to do it.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think, again, it's an overused expression, but it bears repeating, is that your network is your net worth, because your network represents your mindset. It represents your options, your abilities, and basically your influence, right? Like what you can do, because the people is where it is. This is the business that we're in. It's a people-based business, going all the way from the beginning down to our residents, our property management team, right? Our asset management team, our investors, our mentors, coaches. We're all people first. And I think that the better you can be at building trust and providing value, that's the other thing I wanted to say too, and wanted to hear your thoughts on this, is that my theory is, Rod, is that when you become a person who's active in mastermind groups, right? You become a person who is known for solving problems. And when you become someone who solves problems or helps think differently or has a way to kind of help people add value, right? Add value to people, people are going to look for that when they have a problem. And guess when money and opportunity, when things are made, is when people have problems. The more you can set yourself up to help solve other people's problems, right? And put yourself in a reputation to help solve other people's problems, you're going to do more of that, which means you're just going to attract more problems with their solutions, which means more returns, more wealth, more capacity, more personal capacity for you as the individual investor.
The most successful operators I know are the best problem solvers.
Yeah, that's good. That's good to know. I'm glad to hear that I'm on the right path then, because I
totally
try to do everything I can to serve people in any way. So this is awesome. Okay, I have one more question for you before we head into the rapid round. And that question is, you've been in this business for a very long time, right? It's evolved and
older than dirt. Right.
I will say that you've been in this business longer than I've been alive, and I think that that's a rarity these days, because a lot of people, don't have that kind of staying power, or they retire or they move on, right? And I can tell you love this, but can you talk to me about how you've seen this multifamily space evolve? Maybe over the last 10 years is one thing, 15 years is another. What about like 20 years, 25 years? Like,
there's been tons of evolution. One of the big things that changed, when I first started, you could only do 506B syndications, so where you had to have that 3-touch rule before you could approach people for money. Now they, with the Dodd-Frank Act, you can do 506C syndications where you only deal with accredited investors, but I can shout it from the rooftops. I can talk about it on my podcast. I can, by the way, if you're not listening to my podcast, I hope you'll check it out, Lifetime Cashflow. Even if you're, not interested in the interviews, but the motivational clips I do every week are very powerful. They're called Own Your Power, and I hope you'll check it out. I think you'll be very glad you did. You give me 5 minutes a week and I will juice you. And there's hundreds of them there, and just to get your week off right. Obviously, multifamily is the belle of the ball. It's the most secure asset class that I'm aware of. It beats out everything else. And when COVID hit, shopping centers weren't getting assistance. Office buildings were getting assistance. Renters were getting assistance, to pay their rent. And we got hundreds of thousands of dollars in assistance money money for our assets. And, in fact, when 2008 and 9 happened, within 3 years of that crash, rents exceeded '06 levels. Okay. That's how fast it rebounded. So, people always need a place to live, and we become a renter nation as well. That's been a huge evolution. Everybody's thinking, got to be the home ownership. No, people are renting much, much more than ever. So that's huge. The financing, of course, is extraordinary. So that's a huge factor. So much money moving into the business, which has created, honestly, a bubble. I think we're going to see a reckoning. I think we're heading into a recession, honestly. But
Sure.
The demand, the thing that's crazy is the demand is still there. Such a huge demand. Without getting political, I think, the current administration is hell-bent on screwing up the economy here, but with inflation and everything else. But here's the flip side, though. With inflation, something else that goes up is rents. Okay. So,
Yes.
there's a real argument for buying hard assets to offset any pullback. But I think we're due for a pullback. Hopefully it's not going to be a big one. I don't think it will be, God forbid.
Right. I wanted to ask you, before, in the earlier days, right? Like, let's say around 2000 or even before 2000, have you seen the same type of market cycles like happening locally and, nationally? Have you seen the same characteristics happening, or is something weird happening over the last 10 years that's just new to you?
Of course, the 08 and 09 crisis happened because if you could fog a mirror, you could borrow money. Okay. And so, I mean, that was just, if I'd have had my eye on the ball, I would have realized that, but everybody was making so much money like they are now. It just got overlooked. I see deals right now that are so freaking aggressive. I mean, there's no way these guys are going to give the returns to their investors that they're promising. No freaking way. I'm going to tell you, I've been through several market cycles and I've seen huge swings. I mean, my portfolio dropped more than 70% in value here in Florida. Okay. That's true story. But I'll give you an example. Back in the late 80s, there was a crash. Was it the SNL one or the one before? Well, anyway, there was a crash. And I'll give you a great example of what can happen. I had flipped a house. I paid 56 for it. I flipped it for 76, made a nice little hit. The market crashed. I bought the exact same house back for $18,000. Okay. So went down. I sold it several years later for $160. Now you want to hear real pain. It's an area called Highlands in Denver, and it's now worth about $1 million. Okay. And I paid 18 for it initially. Anyway, there's a market cycle for you.
There you go. That's a market cycle for sure. I love it. But that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Now, I was going to have one more question, but we're almost out of time here. And so what I want to do is I want to move over to the rapid round, and it's the same 5 questions that we ask every one of our investors. And honestly, like Rod, we could sit here and talk all day. This is my jam. I love talking about mindset and cycles and all this great stuff. So thank you for all the great content that you've gotten here. So let's go into the rapid round. Number 1, what book has had the biggest impact on you and why? And obviously not Rich Dad, Poor Dad or the Bible.
No, Think and Grow Rich. Think and Grow Rich. It's a book you should read 2 or 3 times a year. I've given away, not exaggerating, probably 3,000 to 4,000 copies. Okay, not exaggerating. Awesome. That many. Think and Grow Rich. Okay.
It is that good.
And I gave you several others earlier that are great too.
Yes, sir. And we're going to highlight all those as well as your resources and everything into the show notes as well for the audience. Number 2, if people wanted to emulate your success, what do you think for them right now is the first actionable thing that they could do to follow in your footsteps?
Well, of course, that's a self-serving response. I mean, you need to listen to my freaking podcast. If you can come to Denver, please come to Denver. Listen, if you come and you don't love the event, I don't mean like it. I mean, absolutely love it. You let me know afterwards. I'll give you your money back. No questions asked. It's never happened, but there's a first time for everything. And I've had thousands of people attend. But the bottom line is you've got to build your competence first, whether it's with me or not. You've got to build competence first. That'll equate to confidence, which will then equate to your ability to influence people. But it starts with competence, okay? But you need to be able to influence people, to invest with you, to partner with you, to sell to you. But it starts with competence.
Yeah, love that. Love that. That's awesome. Number 3, what is one tool, process, or hack in the last 3 months that's helped save you or your team time and or effort?
Sure. So we put our deal flow through HubSpot, which is a CRM and a very powerful CRM. So, we transition our deals through that like a project management. It's like project management. It's really not built for that, but that's how we use it. And we just hired a VA not long ago who's become quite good. And what he does, he's in Latin America. What he does is he takes a broker's provided financial documents, the P&L and stuff, puts it into our spreadsheet, saves us a lot of time. And now we've got him doing comps as well. So that's probably the most
Cool.
recent one. Yeah.
Love that. Yeah, I know it's
Yeah.
really easy to suggest, but there's a big system behind that. Like you have your own, underwriting sheets and everything that it's got to fit into to make it easy for them. So just
Yeah.
want to make sure.
So we're
People
always doing
understand
apples and apples, because every P&L is different. They lump expenses to different ways. So he basically normalizes it for us.
Yeah, we do the same approach. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Good to hear that I'm on the right path. Number 4, if the people that you know had to describe you with one word, what do you think that word would be?
I hope it's passionate, but it's probably impatient. Okay. I hope it's probably impatient. That's my worst downfall, but I think you can see I'm very passionate. I absolutely freaking love what I do.
Yeah, absolutely. I could definitely tell you're into it. And number 5, the last question is, what small thing do most people not know about you?
I've got I've got a massive gun collection. Let's just say
that's
that.
Cool.
Okay?
That's very cool.
It's been a real hobby for me. So that's never been said publicly, but yeah, there you go.
Awesome. Well, hey, Rod, thank you so much for spending all of your valuable time with us here today. I certainly had a blast, and I know that the audience has taken away a lot of information here, a lot of great actionable tools and mindset strategies or things to think about in order to help multiply their business, no matter where they are, at the beginning, middle, or in the growing phase of their career. So before we go, I'm going to give you the floor one last time and invite anyone or anything that you want to say to our audience or to anyone out there in general, finding out more about what you have going on right now, other than your event coming up. Anything else that you want to mention, it's completely open to you.
I mean, listen, if you're really interested in this business, you need to just totally immerse yourself in it. So if you can't come to my event, then for God's sakes, get in a group that's doing it, or watch out from a virtual event that I'll have probably towards the end of the year. You can do that as well. But the bottom line is, you've just got to go do it. And the more immersed you are in it, the better. The more networking you do, the better. So again, if you're not going to come join me, then for God's sakes, go do it in your own backyard and meet as many people as you can, because like you said, Derek, your network absolutely is your net worth. And so, especially in this business. So
thank you very much for that. And Rod, thank you so much again for coming on the show. It was a pleasure having you on. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And for listeners out there, we want to also thank you as well for listening and watching and engaging with us. So please do hit that thumbs up button, subscribe with us, like it, engage in the comment, rate and review. Do everything you can to interact with us, because we really want to appease those algorithm gods so that we can get more and more exposure to more people and bring on tremendous guests just like Rod to help add value to people like you, people throughout their entire investing journey. So thank you again, dear listener. We appreciate you. This is Derek signing off for the day. Thank you so much.